What's going on, everyone? Jeremy here from The Quartering, and the Epic Store exclusivity story in the video game world seems to be reaching a fever pitch as the Ooblets developer situation has brought upon, I would say, or it is at least the powder keg that now has boiled over, where all video game journalists are circling the wagons to defend the poor behavior of a video game developer, the antagonistic behavior of that video game developer, completely ignoring that to blame video game players. Now, I will say, some of the screenshots that were shared by the developer of this game were way over the line. You should never get personal with this type of thing. You're welcome, I believe, to voice your concern, voice your displeasure. You're welcome, if you so choose, to make the game a Pirate Bay exclusive. I don't care about any of that stuff. But the kind of the personal stuff or allegedly fabricating videos, all sorts of stuff like that is a little too far. It's hard to back, right? It puts us in a weird position where I know you're angry, and what this developer said in a snarky post was antagonistic to gamers. They remain defiant, supportive of that statement. They've offered no apology, and that is frustrating. Every screenshot that has something terrible in it gets used to dismiss any and all criticism. And the entire video game journalism world, including Kotaku, IGN, Eurogamer, all these irrelevant video game websites have circled the wagons to push this narrative, and now it is shifted to a weird way to criticize Steam. Now, everybody's favorite totally ethical video game journalist, Nathan Grayson, put out an article yesterday saying the Epic Store anger has gotten out of hand. I disagree. I'd say that there are certain elements of it. But this, again, ignores a very public post by Tim Sweeney completely endorsing the post made by the Ooblets game dev. The post was antagonistic of the gaming community, calling gamers entitled and things of that matter, and it was unacceptable. They knew this situation was a powder keg, and they chose to, ignite it, and now they are, acting like the victims. But the interesting shift in the narrative as the games media continues to run this is now somehow this is Steam's fault. On no uncertain terms, it's tough to expect that anyone might have to deal with a reaction like this because of some slight snark in a post about what is to them very good news. Actually, let's just sit with that for the last point for the second. If you're a fan of Ooblets, the Epic Store announcement is fantastic news. No, you don't get to play it on Steam. And yes, the Epic Store is weird. Janky ghost town, a weird janky ghost town of a thing that's improving at an alarmingly slow rate. But thanks to Epic's funding, Ooblets and the studio making it are now guaranteed to survive, thrive even, thanks to additional staff and resources. You've got to download another, quote, free client to play it, but you get the best possible version of the game that you're looking forward to, and the creators get to keep eating, which is something that I've heard keeps people alive. Now, this is a statement that I have a lot of problems with. We as gamers, or in this particular case, PC gamers, are consistently poo-pooed. Our criticisms are swept away under the guise that, well, these developers, Phoenix Point, for example, MechWarrior 5, Metro Exodus, now Ooblets, they're all supposedly giving us such a Shenmue 3. They're all supposedly giving us this, mythical, much better game and much better experience than we would have gotten before. And I would say that certainly some developers, you would think, are going to program the game better and add additional resources to this. Yet I have not seen any one of these developers outline what this additional cash is going to actually mean. It feels like, to me, this would be a good way to help quell some of the anger over the PC exclusivity. For example, yes, we're going to be Epic exclusive, and we know some of you are going to be upset by that. But let me tell you, what this means is, expanded content. We were going to do 3 missions before, but now we're doing 4. The map was, the gameplay was going to be, the story mode was going to be 34 hours long before. Now it's going to be 54 hours long because of this Epic Game Store. We're going to have DLC that we weren't going to have before. I don't see anybody outlining this. There's just this nebulous statement that, well, it's going to be better. Why? Because we got money? What? That logic doesn't even follow. You mean we're supposed to trust big companies to spend the money wisely? Yeah, okay. And then what's interesting is they're using this situation now to dump on Steam. The reaction, people went nuts, just like they have so many times before. This is the default now. Every little pinprick slight is a powder keg. Developers may as well have lit the matches taped to their fingers. Because any perceived wrong move is enough to set off consumer revolt. And make no mistake, the people going after Ooblets were not fans, as evidenced by the fact, according to Wasser, they didn't even know how the game's Patreon worked. Yes, some people, again, this is trying to take 1 or 2 people and, dismiss everybody's criticisms. Yes, they did have a Patreon. No, the game wasn't crowdfunded. I saw some critiques around that were just flat out wrong. But not everybody. Just because some people jumped on that train doesn't mean that there weren't people that purchased tickets. You saw people in the Discord saying, I wanted this game, but Epic Game Store doesn't take my currency. And the Ooblets developer saying, well, tough cookies. I mean, you mean to tell me that person wasn't a fan? That person wasn't interested in the game? I'm going to say this game wasn't on my list of buy nows, but it's also not, I'm not your typical person talking about this. I'm covering it for the channel. At no point did I say, well, I was interested in it, now I'm not. I mean, some people may be saying that, but to just automatically assume that, well, if you have any critique for us, you must not be a true Scotsman, a true fan of the game, is absurd. We're told nonstop throughout this that we must treat consumers as potential customers a certain way. He said, I understand the relationship people think they might be owed when exchanged money for goods or service, but the people using the terms consumers and potential customers here doing so specifically because we've never actually sold them anything and we don't owe them anything at all. Whenever I've mentioned that, as random people happen to be making a game, don't owe others, random people, anything, they become absolutely enraged. Well, that's not exactly how you word it. And again, you have every right to engage people in your Discord and do this type of thing. But you also then don't have the right to be free of any criticism. And let's make no mistake about it. You have the entire games industry, the machine, that is a kingmaker for games like this. You're going to sell more copies of this game now because of this. That's just the way the world works. But for me, this will always be a stain. And the interesting thing here, things reached a deranged fever pitch because companies kowtowed. Okay, sorry. When presented with the reality of damage inflicted, we've seen countless people effectively saying, you were asking for it, said Wasser. According to that logic, anything anyone says could rub someone the wrong way is cause for internet to try and ruin their life. Well, I don't think the internet is trying to ruin your life, video game developer. In fact, you're getting rich off this. The internet is responding to a statement that you put out publicly. You could have just made that statement privately to your backers or your patrons or to people who had opted into the game's mailing list. You chose to write it from a snarky standpoint, and at no point have you tried to clarify anything. Now, obviously, this is all going to tail down, and fewer people are going to be interested in this video, but I'm hoping that they'll still watch it and share it because it's interesting to see the turn that Kotaku makes. Things reached this deranged fever pitch because, in part, companies kowtowed to an increasingly caustic and bad consumer culture, frequently chalking their overreactions up to passion and other ostensibly virtuous qualities. This culture, to be fair, is not always out of line. See loot boxes, pricing from big publishers, big companies generally behaving in questionable ways, but it frequently takes aims at individuals who have no actual power and contain people and contains people who are not opposed to using bad tactics to achieve their goals. Oh, that's a funny statement coming from you, Nathan Grayson. But also on top of that, I would say that the developers of this game had all of the power in deciding not only to take the Epic exclusivity deal, but also to write that blog post, which is what led to all the backlash. Did you see a huge backlash when MechWarrior did it? No, I didn't even cover it because it's just the way things go nowadays. What I covered was the way you announce it, the way you antagonize the gaming community, the way you jarred your own farts and smelled them to make yourself feel better. While concerns, targets, and participants are not always the same, it's hard to ignore that many of these tactics were pioneered and refined on the chans and movements like... Yeah, that's right. That's right. Consumers organizing to voice their displeasure was a uniquely video game thing. Said nobody ever. All right. And then you see other pernicious elements of the gaming industry have widely failed to condemn them or even engage with them in some cases. In the world of PC gaming, Valve is the biggest example of a company that utterly failed to keep its audience in check. So this is Steam's fault? What? This is absolutely absurd. This is the weirdest roundabout to slam Steam that I've ever seen in my life. First of all, a marketplace has absolutely no responsibility to do anything to control its customers. None. All right? Is Walmart out there policing what their customers say online? How about Amazon? How about Target? How about Best Buy? Why is it that Steam has to do it? Valve spent years lingering in the shadows, remaining hands-off until everything caught fire, and even in the metaphorical "this is fine, dog" could no longer ignore the writing on the wall. Or the company got sued. In this environment, PC gamers developed the oppositional relationship with game makers. Well, maybe it's because they're putting themselves there too. I mean, you keep ignoring the original blog post where this person clearly puts some stuff on a pedestal and points at a section of the gaming community that he doesn't like and that he claims is entitled and toxic and all sorts of other things. Groups sprung up to watch over what they perceived as sketchy games, but inevitably they ended up going after perfectly legitimate developers. Users flooded forums when they were upset about changes to a game or political stances or whatever. What's wrong with that? What's wrong with that? Don't have a Steam page then. Don't list your game on Steam if you don't want user feedback. Don't have a Twitter. Don't have... I mean, what is it? Why is this we get to do whatever we want, but you don't get to critique us for it? In what world does this work? Review brigades became a viable tactic to tank game sales. And by the way, at no point have we seen any real science between that the review brigades and the sales of a game. You know, most of the time on Steam, when I'm looking at reviews, it's somebody that's actually played the game. And for a time, any game that ran afoul of a larger PC gaming consumer culture saw it reduced to oblivion, with users dropping reviews over everything from price discussions to women and people in games. Smaller developers, utterly lacking a systemic or institutional support, were forced to respond to these, as they put it, attacks, even though it's criticism. Look, you're selling your game to a community that is full of millions of people. That's an amazing opportunity. Which brings me to Exclusively Games. There's only 5 days left, 4 days maybe by the time you see this. It is a website that covers gaming, video games, board games, VR, trading card games. Twice a year, we raise funds to keep the site ad-free. It's nonprofit. It's apolitical. It's on the consumer's side. I'm going to leave a link in the description below to the crowdfunder. Twice a year, we sell t-shirts and various other things to keep the site going. I'm hoping you'll take a moment to check it out. I recorded about a 10-minute video, which I'll also link in the description, that explains everything that's going on with the site, what's been working, what didn't work, and how I'm going to change things and improve things over the next 6 months. I really hope you'll take a chance after you finish out this video. So whether unknowingly or out of malice, Valve went on to start the starting weapon for the same audience to start giving Epic Games Store developers trouble when the publisher Deep Silver announced that Metro Exodus would be an Epic Store exclusive. Valve published a note on the game's Steam page calling the move unfair, which it was, to the customers. Inevitably, Steam review brigades of previous games the series followed, as did harassment of several developers, prove it, and even the author of the books Metro the game was based, prove it. Soon this became a pattern with any relatively high-profile game headed towards Epic's at least temporary greener pastures. No. Again, this is a deliberate misrepresentation. Nobody... these games have no problem listing their games on Steam and getting free advertising and building wish lists and building customer bases to then use to sell to Epic. Metro already had customer data from people who had bet on Steam. They used Steam to gain that Epic exclusivity. Make no mistake about it. What they did to the customers, even having pre-orders there, was unfair. It is not Steam's fault for pointing that out, especially considering the fact that they're absolutely correct. This whole story is ridiculous, and to use it as some end around to blame Steam is even more ridiculous. I'm going to go play some video games today. I've been playing some Madden. Don't tell anybody. I've been playing some Madden, and I'm going to be playing some Witcher 3 because, well, that's what I'm going to do. Make sure you take some time to check out exclusivelygames.com. We've got news out. I mean, by the way, if you don't care to or you aren't in a position to back, still, I want you to be a part of our Discord community, which has thousands of members, our forum, which has thousands of video gamers and gamers. Read the news. We've got a full-time news desk that publishes 3 to 5 news articles a day. We've got op-eds like, is the Nintendo Switch Lite, is it worth it? D&D Bard skill. We've got all sorts of fun articles that I just want people to read. So come on over to Exclusively Games, and if you do want to support it, there'll be a link in the description below. Just 5 days remain to secure funding for the rest of the year. I hope you enjoyed this video. We'll talk to you again real soon.